So the Garden Awakens update has been out for a few days now, and unfortunately there's a lot of missed potential, but there are also many good things about this update. There are just some things that the update would have really benefited from. And when we first saw it in snapshots after Minecraft Live, there were some pretty glaring issues, but I expected those to be resolved throughout development, but many of them weren't. Instead, Mojang actually went and did something completely different. So what did this update need that it just didn't have, and what are the overall good and bad things about it? We're talking about all of that in today's video. Let's start this off on a positive note by talking about the good things in this update first. For starters, as far as Minecraft ambience goes, this biome, the Pale Garden, has really good ambience. The other thing that I really like to see here is Mojang trying something a bit different, putting a horror biome on the surface, especially one that is so out of place and unique from all the other biomes. I like to see that. And it was a pretty big surprise to see too, because usually Mojang goes pretty far to avoid making controversial changes. But here they did, and a lot of people don't like having the Pale Garden on the surface with the gray sky and everything. They say it's kind of an eyesore, and I can see where they're coming from with that. Maybe it would have been a good idea if this was like a toggleable biome in the world settings, like you could switch it to not generate. Or maybe it should just be a rare biome, but it's been a long time since we've seen any kind of fantasy type biome in Minecraft. The last one we saw really on the surface was the mushroom biome. The other good thing about this update is just how unique of a mob the creaking is and that it interacts with the actual environment. But unfortunately that does kind of lead us into some of the missed potential with this update. Imagine if Mojang made some kind of a structure that utilized the unique mechanics of the creaking and the creaking heart, where you have to make your way through these traps and puzzles to destroy creaking hearts without dying. There's a lot they could have done with the mechanic, but they didn't. And while we're on the subject of a structure, to me personally, the Pale Garden just feels like it's the type of biome that should have a structure. Like, imagine if the Deep Dark didn't have the ancient city, it would just feel kind of empty. Like there was supposed to be something there, but the effort just wasn't put in. That's kind of the same vibe that I get with the Pale Garden. I mean, something like a graveyard or some ruined haunted house or a crypt underground would have been so cool in this biome. Plus, it could have solved another thing that was a bit of an issue with this update. When we first saw the update, there was no reason to go to the Pale Garden at night and ever even have the experience of taking on the creaking. You could get both the wood set and the creaking heart at day. And Mojang did something to kind of fix this, but not really with the resin. But the problem is that resin, just like the pale wood set, is completely decorative. And you might be wondering, well, why is that a problem? And it wouldn't be, if it wasn't for the fact that you have to fight your way through a deadly challenge to get it. How Minecraft and its game design have pretty much always worked is if you're just exploring, your reward for that time put in exploring is usually something decorative. There can be something functional, but there doesn't need to be if you're only spending time. So if you take the time to find a new forest, you get the new wood type, and then there doesn't need to be anything else functional there. But the Pale Garden is obviously no ordinary forest. If there is something that presents a challenge to the player, specifically something that puts them at risk of dying and losing their things and having to come back, that's when there's always, or almost always, some kind of a functional reward. Because that is something on the side of the game that is to appeal more to the extrinsically motivated. So it would have a reward that appeals more to the extrinsically motivated, i.e. something functional. For example, imagine if the recent trial chambers offered no rewards other than the blocks that you get there. No mace, wind charges, iron, or anything, just the blocks. That would be a problem. And it's just about the exact same one that we are seeing with the Pale Garden. The Pale Garden at night is one of the most dangerous places in the entire game. Probably the most dangerous biome. In addition to the typical mobs that you have to worry about, you also have to worry about the deadly creaking that can spawn all over the place really, and also the reduced visibility because of all the foliage. You go through all of that hassle and you get, some decorative blocks. That's the same thing that you get for just visiting it during the daytime. Why should you have to fight your way through a difficult challenge just to get the same type of reward that you can get anywhere else without having to go through any challenge? And although resin can also be used for armor trims, it is still purely decorative, of course. And again, the creaking heart can be obtained during the day, and as for its uses, it can probably be used for some pretty good trolling, hiding 50 creaking hearts around your friend's house, I'm sure, and it seems to have some very niche redstone use, but really, aside from trolling, most players probably won't be using it. And so this is where a structure could have even more improved the biome if it had some kind of special reward for going there at nighttime. Even if it was just something as basic as typical loot and new armor trims and a music disc, that would have been better than nothing. But now let's talk about aesthetics. The Pale Garden still doesn't quite feel like a garden. Mojang did add one flower to it with 2 different variants, though still when you think of a garden you tend to think of a lot of different plants, so maybe just 1 or 2 more unique plants to the biome could have benefited it, but it's not really a big problem. A lot of people really wanted white pumpkins in the garden. I'm sorry to those of you who wanted them because we did not get them. The other thing that a lot of people wanted was fog in the garden, and I think this probably would have been a good thing. Maybe not too intense, but at least during the nighttime and maybe also during daytime, it could have contributed pretty heavily to the aesthetics of the biome. Aside from that, though, the pale wood set is a very nice one. It's one that I can genuinely see myself probably using quite a bit in the future. I'm not sure I can say the same about resin blocks, but I'm sure pro builders will find some way to mix them into palettes or make them look good. And so that is my honest review of the Garden Awakens update. Thank you for watching. Any kind of support is greatly appreciated. I hope to see you in the next one, and for now, goodbye.